Um, so some people who should probably be fired for real um, are the co-founders of Rooster Teeth. I'm just gonna go out and say it right now.
It
Those fools should probably be let go.
This one makes me sad because I was such a big fan of Rooster Teeth. I loved Red versus Blue,
Yes.
right? Loved their stuff. Love Rooster Teeth stuff.
So a little bit of context in here. There is earlier this week an ex Rooster Teeth veteran named I'm gonna mispronounce the name and I'm gonna be very sorry. I think it's Kidden Jensen. Is that how to pronounce it? Kidden?
I think it's Caden.
Caden. So Caden Jensen. Okay. Came out and accused the company for several things that are just abhorrent. So here's the easy part: overworking and underpaying. That's a lot of people unfortunately are dealing with that sort of piece to it. But then in a toxic environment where she, as a trans woman, was repeatedly called a homophobic slur for multiple years straight. And that on top of everything, like, so this came out in a twit longer throughout the week. She worked at Rooster Teeth from 2013 to just here, I think it's about July 2022. Rooster Teeth is owned by Warner Brothers Discovery now. And she was working in, they're based out of Austin, Texas. And she says she was making barely $40,000 a year. Okay.
By the way, let's mention the fact that Rooster Teeth is not a scrappy little indie company. They're owned by Discovery Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
They're owned by Warner Brothers.
If I do the math, that's not really even at like a good version of livable minimum wage for Texas. Period. Any place in Texas.
I don't know. I'll be honest. I don't know the thing in there. I don't think it is. I mean, 40,000 a year is kind of ridiculous for that kind of stuff. This absolutely.
This is dumb on and horrific on several levels, because we're not going to repeat the slur that they called her. But so it went so far as the online screen name that everybody goes by at like Rooster Teeth and things like that. Her name was a play off of the slur, but nobody with like sort of previous like understanding of that would have been able to kind of figure it out. And that was in her letter. Basically, it was like, so hey, when you guys were like affectionately calling me this name, that actually really hurt. And that level of just sadness and just pain that you can feel that kind of pain coming through the words that she put out this past week. Like, let's go with the gross underpayment and the overwork and everything like that. Like, that is not okay on like 15 different levels.
So, pay bans, all that stuff. Obviously, you guys have no excuse for that, Rooster Teeth. Come on. The bigger issue to me is the workplace harassment and the workplace stuff. And let me break this down. Two things that drive me bonkers. And this is actually some advice to any younger people who are viewing this. I'm going to tell you, this is exactly what happens when 22 to 24-year-olds suddenly get really big on the internet really, really fast, suddenly have all this money. Now you're a company. But what they don't know is what they don't know. They don't know that the first thing they need to do is hire an HR executive who knows what the heck they're doing. They need to realize that, yeah, they're cool and they're the online influencer. Everything's great. But you're going to have blind spots as a 22, 23, 24-year-old. And you're going to say things that are dumb and stupid. And it's never appropriate in the workplace, never appropriate to harass people, especially your employees. Okay? This is what happens with kids who have no filters, who don't have the professional experience to know what is appropriate in a professional working environment. get the money and the power to start running these companies. They just don't know what the hell they're doing. And quite frankly, they have no excuse because you have the assets, you have the ability to bring these people in who can teach you, right? And their statement, by the way, absolutely. It took us till 2020 to figure out that we were doing something wrong.
Well, and the worst thing about it was that, so I'll let me respond in kind then. Caden said, with all due respect, I asked you in 2022 to fix your shit, and you said no. So clearly you didn't learn anything in 2022 to realize you were doing something wrong. And then, of course, she calls on, go pay and credit people, give proper benefits. And like, she's asking for, like, to me, what is the bare minimum? And she shouldn't be the one that has to be advocating on behalf of everybody else that's still left at Rooster Teeth that's working for fucking Warner Brothers Discovery.
Yeah, that's really where I keep coming back to. Okay, you are not a scrappy little 5-person startup company. Okay, there's some credit I'll give to people for things with pay and benefits and things like that. We could talk about the insurance industry in this country and the fact that we should just have single payer, because that would fix a lot of these problems with the benefits side of it. But the fact of the matter is, you are owned by fucking Warner Brothers. It's fucking Warner Brothers. You have the money.
Well, and
this is not an issue.
Rooster Teeth has had a couple of different owners. It's not like they've been a scrappy little place forever in a day. Like, they've been putting out like primetime anime on like Cartoon Network and all these other kind of things. I think it was on Cartoon Network, I believe. Like, they've been putting out major publications and things for years, and this is the type of place that it has been. And like yourself, Red versus Blue to me was like amazing. I was like, this is fantastic. I mean, this is when did Red versus Blue first come out? Like
a long time ago.
I know we're old, aren't we?
Red versus Blue.
I want to say it came out in like maybe 2000.
No, maybe? It was after that. Hang on, I'm looking. 2003.
Okay, 2003. So like, it's old comparatively. Some of it still holds up. Some of it went way off the rocker. But like, thought that was a fantastic kind of thing, but like, all they've done is then capitalize on that and build this thing. And the more that you build this thing, RWBY, is it pronounced Ruby, right?
Ruby.
Yeah. I know a ton of people who love that thing. Like, that anime is well done for them. They have RTX every year, right? That's their own convention for this shit.
By the way, this is not the first problem that Rooster Teeth has had in the past. I'm just pointing that out.
No, it's true. It's true. But I think what it does is it highlights, I think, the larger sort of issue that we are getting at is and you saw this a ton in Silicon Valley, and we're still to this day having to deal with, because I would lump Rooster Teeth into kind of the Silicon Valley startup culture of, the dudes that get, $1 million, like you said, at like age 20, 21, that sort of thing. I think they're the fucking gods of the world or some shit like that. And you want to slag like a lot of corporations for treating people horribly in terms of like time and effort and things like that, but you don't hear about these kinds of things in normal corporate America to this degree. And it's because they actually do some of the basic things with like HR and stuff like that. I feel like an old man preaching at the moment, and I apologize. But we're talking about basic decency and treating human beings with it. And if we have to trade a little bit of the quote unquote freedom for having basic decency at work, then that's okay. Because you don't want to have somebody who's been that pushed down. And by the way, absolutely brave and kudos to Caden for speaking out, because now it's blown up and become a thing. But nobody would know any of this stuff if they didn't speak out and say something. And that takes a ton of bravery and it takes a ton of courage, because I imagine that their life is completely turned upside down right now. And probably, they've already done press interviews and some things like that. Like, that is an awful lot of spotlight to be on you, and then to want to try to work somewhere else, you're going to be dealing with questions for that from any future employer who looks up your name. So you're taking a risk by basically battling for the basics, but you could be foreseen later on as somebody who could be a troublemaker because you're doing the basics. And that's why I say it takes a lot of courage and a lot of effort and a lot of energy to want to just try. But I think it underlines just how passionate somebody can be about this stuff, and they want to see things do better. Because in a place like this, in a place like Rooster Teeth, you get to make cool things for a living. Like, that's almost reward enough. You're not digging a ditch. You're not working in a factory. You're not having to just kind of do some of these mundane 9-to-5 things. If you do that, that's not me getting on you. It's not my bag. You do you. But you shouldn't have to sacrifice your basic human decency and your basic human needs just to have a job that seems cool on paper. It's a classic example, but it is.
But that's the
latest.
other thing, is a lot of these companies do take advantage of that. They're like, oh, look, it's so much fun to work here. You did mention Alana Pierce earlier. I do want to point out she did release a YouTube video confirming a lot of the bad working conditions. Alana was at Rooster Teeth, but she wasn't there long. Well, she went from IGN to Rooster Teeth. She wasn't there long, and now she's at Sony. Yep. But apparently, she confirmed it was not at times a pleasant place to work.
Well, and I think that is, I mean, it's a very important kind of thing too, because people who have been traveled, and this is a thing that we see at a lot of studios in the gaming industry. We're just dealing with this with Blizz as well, with Blizzard. This culture that we're finding, it has to stop. We're not going to get games. We're not going to get good content if the people who want and are passionate about wanting to make the content get treated like this by a bunch of fucking white dudes who don't know what the fuck they're doing. Like, that kind of shit has to stop. Otherwise, we're going to be sitting around watching Fox News all day because that's the only shit that's going to get made. And I'm sorry, that's hell. Plain and simple. Alex is laughing because he knows I would, like, punch a TV in a heartbeat if Fox News came on.
Yep.
That's all I have to say about that. Do better. We need people to do better.
Yep.
We absolutely need them to do better.
Across the board.